November 1st. 51 B.C. Cicero sat down before Pindenissum, a city in Cilicia. 79. Pompeii and Herculaneum buried by an eruption of Vesuvius. 1290. The persons of all the English Jews, 16,511, were banished, and their estates and treasures confiscated to the crown. 1399. John V the Conqueror, Duke of Brittany, died. 1483. Henry Stafford, Duke of Buckingham, beheaded. He was the vile instrument of the third Richard's usurpation, and was executed by that king's order, without any legal process. 1596. Peter Pithou, a learned and eloquent French civilian, died. He visited England, and published some valuable works on law, history, and classical literature, and restored drus and other ancient books which had long been lost. 1607. Sir James Melville died. He was a courtier, in the strictest sense of that word. To him the court was the world, and its rules of action his. 1653. The Parliament of the English Commonwealth chose a new Council of State. 1678. William Coddington, Governor of Rhode Island, died. He became dissatisfied with the ecclesiastical government in Massachusetts, and in 1638 associated himself with 170 others, who purchased Rhode Island of the natives. He was a man of learning, and contributed more than any other, perhaps, to the establishment of the colony of Rhode Island, and laying the foundation of civil and religious liberty in America. 1683. The counties of Albany, Dutchess, Kings, Orange, Queens, Suffolk, Richmond, Ulster, and Westchester, New York, erected. 1700. Charles II, King of Spain, died. He was the last of the eldest branches of the Austrian princes who reigned in Spain. 1710. Lord Haversham, a noted British peer, died. He was a constant speaker in the House of Lords. 1714. John Radcliffe, an English physician of great eminence, died. The University of Oxford is indebted to him for the library and infirmary which bears his name, and for an annuity of £600 for 2 travelling fellowships. 1724. Humphrey Prideaux died. An English divine, historian, and critic. 1730. Louis Ferdinand Marsigli, an Italian nobleman, died. He was famous in arms and in letters, and founded the Academy of Arts and Sciences at Bologna, called the Institute. 1755. Earthquake at Lisbon, by which it is supposed about 50,000 persons perished. Every building worthy of notice was prostrated. Peerless Pool was lifted from its bed. The Meos Lake in Norway vibrated with the canals of Amsterdam. The fountains of Tangier were stopped, and artificial tides flowed every 15 minutes. At Gibraltar. 1765. Stamp Act went into operation in America. The great dissatisfaction it created was manifested by the tolling of bells, and other solemnities. 1769. La Salle arrived at the mouth of the Miami, having 17 men in his company, the rest being dismissed, to return with furs to Niagara, when he embarked at the Bay of Pruins. 1770. Alexander Cruden died, a Scottish writer, and corrector of the press, whose literary labors were notable. He was found dead on his knees, in the attitude of prayer. 1771. John Eyre sentenced to be transported beyond seas, for stealing a few quires of paper. He was worth £30,000, yet committed and confessed the deed. 1775. Peter Joseph Bernard died, a French writer of operas and other lighter pieces, which for their ease and elegance, procured for him the name of Le Gentil. Bernard. 1783. Charles Linnaeus the Younger died. He succeeded his father as professor of botany at Uppsala. 1793. George Gordon died, an Englishman who led the opposition to the Papists in 1780, which gave rise to the riots of that year. His life from that time was spent in legal censures and imprisonments, and he finally died in Newgate Prison. 1794. Henry Hugeveen died, an eminent Dutch philologist, of great learning and industry. 1794. Rhinefield, a fortress built on a rock on the left bank of the Rhine, abundantly provided and defended by 2,000 men, surrendered at the first summons of the French. 1805. Captain Wright, of the British Navy, died in the Temple at Paris. Bonaparte is accused of having suffered him to be put to the torture and strangled. 1806. French entered Costern, where they took 4,000 Prussian prisoners, 90 cannon, and sufficient stores to supply the army 2 months. 1806. French under Mortier took Kassel and all Hesse. 1813. 4 large British vessels, and a number of boats, attacked the advance guard of the United States Army, under General Wilkinson, and were repulsed. 1815. John Coakley Lettsome, a distinguished London physician, died. He was long known by his public and private benevolence, his skill, and his numerous writings, moral and medical. 1818. The first steamboat on the lakes, called from an Indian chief, Walk in the Water, left Buffalo on her first trip. Some paid Fulton and Livingston for patent. 1819. The North Georgian Gazette and Winter Journal, first published on board the Hecla Discovery ship, in Winter Harbor, off Melville Island, in the Polar Sea. The 21st number closed its polar existence, but it rose again in London. 1834. John Howard died in Fayette County, Georgia, aged 103. He was in the Revolutionary Army, and received 5 wounds at the Battle of Guilford. His sight continued good till his 100th year, and he never used spectacles. 1835. Thomas Taylor died, an English author, long known by the appellation of the Platonist. His works comprise 23 volumes, quarto, and 40 volumes, octavo, the greatest of which are complete translations of Aristotle and Plato, illustrated copiously from the ancient commentators. 1835. William Motherwell, a Scottish poet of considerable reputation, died. 1842. Louis D. José, usually called Portuguese Joe, was burned to death in the hotel at New Orleans in which he kept the bar. He was captain of the maintop on board the ship Saratoga, at the battle on Lake Champlain, and nailed the colors to the mast after they had been shot away by the British. 1843. John Parrish Robertson, a Scottish merchant in South America, died at Calais. He established an extensive business, and introduced many useful improvements, which the distracted partisans of that country could not appreciate. He was deprived of a large property which he had accumulated, and retired to England, where he produced 2 works on South America, of some merit. 1845. Samuel Harrison Smith, well known as the editor of the Philadelphia New World, and the first to establish the National Intelligencer, died at Washington. 1849. Jabez W. Huntington, of Connecticut, a distinguished senator of the United States, died at Norwich, Connecticut. 1849. Eliezer Goodrich, professor of law in Yale College, and sometime mayor of New Haven, died, aged 88. His removal from the office of Collector of Customs at New Haven, immediately on the accession of Jefferson, gave occasion to the famous letter of that president, in which he avowed his principle of removal for political opinions. 1849. Jeffrey Chipman died at Kalamazoo, Michigan, aged 60. He was a native of Rutland, Vermont, and afterwards a magistrate at Canandaigua, New York, before whom William Morgan, the apostate Freemason, was arraigned for larceny, and committed to Ontario jail, whence he was abducted. In all the subsequent trials, J. Chipman was the first witness called. 1852. Battle of Hermosillo. The French Count Bourbon de Réusset, who led an enterprise upon Sonora, was defeated, and his expedition wholly overthrown. 1855. Accident on the Missouri and Pacific Railroad. An excursion train going to celebrate the opening of the road was precipitated through a bridge 30 feet into the river, by which the chief engineer of the road, Thomas S. O'Sullivan, and 24 others, were killed, and a great number injured, many of them prominent citizens of St. Louis.